The old alien woman I helped introduced me to her beautiful daughter, Elias, had learned that space stations were loud in a quiet way. Engines hummed through metal floors, translation systems whispered in dozens of languages, and footsteps echoed like rain inside a cave. The trade station called Karis Drift was one of the oldest still in use. Ships came here not because it was beautiful, but because everyone eventually needed something that only this place could offer. Elias walked slowly through the central corridor, a small pack resting on his shoulder. He was not rich, not important, and not in a hurry. He worked as a long-range systems technician, moving from station to station, fixing what others ignored. Humans like him were common now, scattered across known space. Most aliens saw them as useful, adaptable, and easy to overlook. The corridor was full. Tall insect-like traders argued over mineral prices. Soft-skinned aquatic beings floated inside clear suits. Machines rolled past carrying crates that hummed with stored energy. Elias stepped aside when needed, patient and calm, his eyes taking in everything without staring too long. Near the edge of the market path, close to a support pillar darkened by age, he noticed a figure that did not move with the flow. She was small and bent, her back curved under the weight of years. Her skin was pale silver, marked with faint lines that glowed softly like fading stars. She carried 2 containers that were clearly too heavy for her thin arms. Others passed her. Some glanced and turned away. A few did not even seem to see her. Elias slowed, then stopped. The old alien woman shifted one container, nearly losing her grip. It struck the floor with a dull sound but did not break. She froze, breathing hard, her shoulders trembling with effort. Her eyes darted around, not with fear, but with something quieter and sadder. Expectation without hope, Elias stepped closer. "Excuse me," he said gently, using the station translator. "Can I help you with those?" The woman looked up, surprised. Her eyes were large and dark, reflecting the lights of the corridor. For a moment she said nothing, as if the idea itself needed time to reach her. "You would help," she said slowly, her voice thin but clear, "without trade or claim." "Yes," Elias said. "They look heavy." She studied his face. Humans were still strange to many species. Short-lived, expressive, and direct. After a moment she inclined her head slightly. "If you wish," she said. Elias lifted the containers with care. They were heavier than they looked, filled with raw crystal shards used in memory storage. Valuable but not rare enough to excite most traders. He adjusted his grip and nodded for her to lead the way. They walked together along a quieter side path. The old woman moved slowly but with dignity. Her steps were measured, deliberate. Elias matched her pace easily. "You did not ask my clan," she said after a while. "I didn't think it mattered," Elias replied. She made a soft sound that might have been laughter. "Once it mattered very much." They reached a lift platform that descended toward the lower residential levels. As they waited, the woman looked at him again. "You are human," she said. "Yes. Many fear humans," she said. "Many dismiss them, few understand them." Elias shrugged. "We're still learning about everyone too." The lift arrived and they stepped inside. The ride down was slow. Old stations saved energy where they could. The walls flickered with faded symbols of long-gone alliances. "My name is Selari," the woman said. "Of the Lithran." Elias had heard the name before, but only in passing, a species known more in old records than current news. "I'm Elias," he said. "Nice to meet you." They reached her level, a quiet ring of small dwellings carved into the station's inner structure. Fewer lights, less noise. The air felt older here. Selari led him to a door marked with symbols worn smooth by time. It opened at her touch. Inside, the space was modest but clean. Shelves lined the walls, filled with crystalline tablets, plants grown under soft lamps, and objects that looked ceremonial. Elias placed the containers gently on the floor. "Thank you," Selari said. She looked at the containers, then back at him. "You have given effort without demand." "It wasn't much," Elias said quickly. "Anyone could have done it." "But they did not," she replied. She moved to a small table and poured a clear liquid into 2 cups made of polished stone. She offered one to him. "A drink," she said. "It is warm." Elias hesitated only a moment before accepting. The liquid tasted faintly sweet, calming. They sat in silence for a few breaths. "Your kind moves often," Selari said. "You do not build deep roots." "Some of us do," Elias said, "but many travel. It helps us learn and survive." She nodded slowly. "Survival shaped us once too." Her gaze drifted to one of the shelves where a cracked tablet rested alone. Elias followed her eyes. "You have lived long," he said carefully. "Yes," she replied, "long enough to see my people fade from memory. Once we were asked for guidance. Now we are avoided. Old voices make young minds uncomfortable." Elias did not know what to say, so he listened. "You helped me today," Selari continued. "That tells me something about you and about humans." He shifted in his seat. Praise always made him uneasy. "I just didn't want you to struggle," he said. "That is exactly what I mean," she said softly. After a while, Elias stood. "I should go," he said. "I have work on the upper docks." Selari rose as well, slower this time. She inclined her head again, deeper than before. "I will remember this," she said. "Kindness is never lost, it only waits." Elias smiled politely, unsure how to respond, and left. He did not think about her much afterward. Work filled his hours, a failing navigation grid, a power relay that hummed too loud, small problems with simple solutions. Days passed. On the fourth cycle, a station courier found him near Dock 9. "Elias Trent," the courier said, checking a slate. "You are requested." "Requested by who?" Elias asked. The courier handed him a sealed message. The mark on it was unfamiliar but elegant. Elias opened it. A simple invitation, a location, a time. He frowned. Curiosity won. At the appointed time, he returned to the lower residential ring. This time, Selari's door opened before he touched it. She stood straighter now, her posture firm, her expression focused. "You came," she said. "You invited me," Elias replied. "Please," she said, "come inside." The room looked different. The lights were brighter. The shelves had been rearranged. A sense of preparation filled the air. "This is not a repayment," Selari said, as if reading his thoughts. "It is a continuation." "Of what?" Elias asked. "Of understanding," she replied. She gestured for him to sit. He did. "There is someone I wish you to meet," she said. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Someone important?" "Yes," Selari said, "to me, and perhaps in time to your people." She moved toward an inner doorway Elias had not noticed before. It slid open smoothly. Light spilled out, warm and golden. A figure stood within. She was taller than Selari, her form graceful, her skin a deeper shade of silver that shimmered softly. Her eyes were bright, intelligent, and calm. She wore simple garments but carried herself with quiet confidence. This was no chance meeting. "Elias," Selari said, her voice filled with something like pride. "This is my daughter." The daughter stepped forward, studying him with open curiosity, not judgment. "I am Lyrena," she said. "I have heard of you." Elias blinked, surprised. "You have?" "Yes," Lyrena said, "not by name, by action." Selari watched them both, her eyes gentle and sharp at the same time. "You see," the old woman said, "my daughter studies the patterns of younger civilizations. She listens for what others ignore." Lyrena inclined her head slightly. "Your kindness reached further than you know." Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest, mixed with uncertainty. He had helped carry containers. That was all, or so he thought. And somewhere deep within the quiet station, something ancient stirred, paying attention to humanity in a new way. Part 1 ended not with answers, but with the opening of a door that could no longer be closed. Elias did not speak right away. He stood near the doorway, feeling suddenly aware of his worn boots, his plain jacket, and the quiet weight of attention resting on him. Lyrena's gaze was calm but sharp, like someone who observed worlds rather than judged individuals. Selari closed the inner door behind her daughter, sealing the space in gentle light. "Please," Selari said, gesturing to a seat. "Sit. This meeting deserves time." Elias obeyed, lowering himself onto a smooth bench near the center of the room. Lyrena remained standing for a moment, studying him from a respectful distance. Then she sat opposite him, folding her hands loosely in her lap. "You seem confused," Lyrena said. "That's fair," Elias replied honestly. "I didn't expect this." "Most important moments arrive that way," she said. Her voice was steady, thoughtful. "You helped my mother without knowing who she was. That matters." Elias glanced at Selari. The old woman watched them quietly, like a bridge between generations. "I didn't know she was important," Elias said. "I still don't." Selari smiled faintly. "Importance fades with time, character does not." Lyrena leaned forward slightly. "Tell me something, Elias of Earth. When you saw my mother struggling, what did you think?" He considered the question carefully. "I thought she shouldn't be alone with something that heavy, that's all." "You did not think of reward," Lyrena said. "No, you did not fear insult or loss of status." "I don't think helping someone lowers me," Elias said. Lyrena's eyes softened, but her interest deepened. "That answer is uncommon," she said. Many species weigh action against gain. Humans often act first, then explain later. Selari made a quiet sound of agreement. You study civilizations, Elias said slowly. Why? Lyrana shifted her gaze toward one of the glowing tablets on the shelf. Because civilizations rise and fall faster than stars. Someone must remember why. She stood and walked to the shelf, lifting a thin crystal tablet. Images flickered across its surface, showing scenes of different worlds, different species. My people were once asked to advise empires, Lyrana said. We observed patterns, what strengthened societies, what destroyed them. And what destroyed yours? Elias asked gently. Lyrana paused. Selari answered instead. We became quiet when others demanded noise, the old woman said. We chose patience when others chose speed. The galaxy moved on. Lyrana turned back to Elias. Humans are different. You are fast, but you hesitate when it matters. You build, but you also care for what breaks. Elias shifted again, uncomfortable. We make a lot of mistakes. Yes, Lyrana said. So did every species that mattered. She returned to her seat. For cycles now, Lyrana continued, I have observed humanity from a distance. Trade logs, diplomatic exchanges, records of aid offered without treaty. You are inconsistent but sincere. Elias frowned. Why tell me this? Because you are here, she said simply, and because my mother chose you. Selari inclined her head. You passed without knowing there was a test. Elias felt his chest tighten. A test? Not designed, Selari said quickly. Life offers enough trials without us adding more, but some moments reveal more than long observation. Lyrana watched his reaction closely. She saw no pride, no hunger for approval, only concern. You are worried, she said. I don't want to represent all humans, Elias admitted. I'm just one person. That is exactly why you can, Lyrana replied. She stood again and activated a projection field. The air between them filled with moving symbols and images of the station, the trade corridor, the moment Elias had stopped. This was not recorded for judgment, Lyrana said. It was noticed because it was rare. Elias watched himself on the projection, a smaller version lifting containers, speaking softly. I didn't do anything special, he said. You did something normal, Lyrana corrected, and that is what makes it special. Selari placed a hand over her chest, a gesture of deep respect in her culture. Long ago, she said, we believed strength was shown by those who stood above others. Now I see it is shown by those who stand beside them. Silence settled, heavy but not uncomfortable. Lyrana deactivated the projection. There is a council, she said. Old minds, quiet minds, they guide the preservation of knowledge beyond politics. They are watching humanity more closely now. Elias swallowed. Because of me? Because of patterns, Lyrana said. You are one small proof. Selari looked at him kindly. You need not fear this attention. It does not demand conquest or sacrifice. Elias let out a slow breath. That's good. We've had enough of those. Lyrana smiled faintly. We know. Time passed gently after that. They spoke of small things. Elias told them about Earth's wide skies, about cities built on deserts and ice. Selari spoke of ancient gardens grown inside hollow moons. Lyrana listened more than she spoke, storing every word. Eventually, Elias rose to leave. I don't know what happens next, he said honestly. Neither do we, Lyrana replied, but paths begin with steps, not certainty. Selari walked him to the door. You honored my home today, she said. Return when you wish. Elias nodded and stepped back into the corridor. The door closed behind him. As he walked away, he felt the station differently. The walls seemed less empty, the noise less distant. Unseen to him, Lyrana stood quietly inside, her thoughts moving faster than stars. Mother, she said softly, humans will change the balance. Selari smiled, tired but content. Yes, not by force, by presence. Far above the station, data streams adjusted. Observers took note. Quiet recommendations began to form. And Elias, unaware of the long echoes of his small kindness, returned to his work, carrying with him the beginning of something the galaxy had almost forgotten how to recognize. Elias tried to return to his normal routine, but normal no longer felt the same. The station corridors were still familiar, the work orders still simple, yet his thoughts often drifted back to the quiet room filled with warm light and careful words. He did not feel chosen or special. He felt watched, not in a fearful way, but in a thoughtful one, like a book left open on a table. He worked on a damaged signal relay near the outer ring, hands steady, mind wandering. When the relay hummed back to life, He leaned against the wall and let out a breath. Around him, ships came and went, carrying stories he would never hear. That evening, another message arrived. Not formal, no seal, just a simple request asking if he would join Sailari and Lyrana for a shared meal. Elias hesitated longer this time. He wondered what was expected of him. Words had weight now. Every small action seemed larger than before. In the end, he accepted. Avoiding the unknown had never helped humanity grow. The apartment felt warmer than before when he arrived. Soft light filled the space, and the scent of unfamiliar but gentle spices drifted through the air. Sailari sat near a low table, arranging dishes with slow care. Lyrana stood by the window, looking out at the station lights as if they were stars. "You came," Sailari said, pleased. "I said I would," Elias replied. Lyrana turned and smiled. "We hoped you would." They ate together in calm silence at first. The food was simple, nourishing, designed to be shared rather than admired. Elias noticed how Lyrana watched not how much he ate, but how he reacted, whether he rushed, whether he complained, whether he asked questions. "This is good," he said honestly. Sailari's eyes brightened. "It is an old recipe from when our people traveled often." Lyrana folded her hands. "Elias, may I ask you something more difficult tonight?" He nodded. "You can ask." "Humans speak often of hope," she said. "But your history holds much pain. Why do you still believe in each other?" Elias took time to answer. He looked down at his hands, marked with small scars from work and travel. "Because if we stop believing," he said slowly, "then everything we lost would be for nothing. Hope is how we keep going without becoming hard." Lyrana absorbed the words carefully, like something fragile. Sailari watched them both, a quiet pride in her expression. Later, after the meal, Lyrana activated another projection. This one showed no recordings of Elias. Instead, it displayed slow-moving symbols, maps of influence, streams of data that shifted like living things. "These are trust paths," Lyrana explained. "Invisible connections between species. They grow when kindness is repeated. They weaken when fear leads." Elias leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "Humans are forming many new paths," Lyrana continued. "Often without knowing it." "What happens when they connect?" Elias asked. "Knowledge flows," she replied. "Warnings, opportunities, sometimes survival." Sailari added quietly, "In the past, those paths saved entire civilizations before danger was understood." Elias sat back, letting that settle. "So, this is bigger than me?" "Yes," Lyrana said, "and smaller. It depends where you stand." Days turned into cycles. Elias began visiting more often, not as a guest of honor, but as a familiar presence. He helped Sailari organize old records. He listened as Lyrana spoke of worlds he would never see. In return, he told them stories of humans he had known, farmers who rebuilt after storms, engineers who shared water systems with rivals, children who adopted alien pets without caring what anyone thought. Lyrana listened to every story. One cycle, she surprised him by asking to walk the station together. "Observers learn more outside quiet rooms," she said. They moved through the trade levels side by side. Aliens glanced at them, some curious, some indifferent. Lyrana noted everything, how Elias stepped aside without being asked, how he spoke respectfully even to those who dismissed him. At one point, a merchant argued loudly with a small mechanical worker whose translation unit malfunctioned. Others watched, annoyed but uninvolved. Elias approached, adjusted the device, and spoke calmly until understanding returned. The argument dissolved. Lyrana said nothing, but her eyes followed every movement. Later, as they rested near a viewing port, she spoke. "Do humans know how powerful this is?" she asked. "This refusal to escalate?" "We don't think of it as power," Elias said. "Just keeping things from getting worse." She nodded. "That may be the same thing." That night, Lyrana accessed the archive alone. Vast chambers of stored memory opened to her presence. She recorded her observations carefully, without praise or exaggeration. Only truth. Humans act before calculating reward. Humans de-escalate without losing pride. Humans form bonds quickly but do not cling blindly. When she finished, she hesitated before submitting the record. This entry would change attention patterns. It would invite questions. She submitted it anyway. The response was slow but clear. Interest deepened. Requests for further observation increased, not commands. Invitations. Elias felt the change without knowing its cause. More aliens greeted him by name, more asked for help, advice, conversation. Humans across the station experienced similar shifts, not suddenly but steadily. One evening, Elias voiced his concern. "I don't want humans to be used," he said. "Kindness shouldn't become a tool." Lyrana met his gaze. "That is why your people matter. You guard kindness even when it costs you." Selari placed a hand on Elias' arm. "The galaxy has had many rulers," she said. "Very few caretakers." The words stayed with him. A message arrived soon after, this one different from the rest. It came through Lyrana, but it was not from her. The council wished to meet the human. Elias stared at the message for a long time. "I can refuse," he said quietly. "Yes," Lyrana agreed, "and they would respect that." He thought of the old woman struggling with her containers, of the countless small moments that made up a life. "I'll go," he said finally, "not as a representative, just as myself." "That is all they want," Lyrana said softly. The meeting was not held in a grand hall. It took place in a quiet, shared space where presence mattered more than appearance. The council members appeared as lights, shapes, voices without bodies. Ancient, careful, curious, they asked Elias simple questions. Why help without reason? Afterward, Lyrana walked with him back toward the residential ring. "You did well," she said. "I was just honest," he replied. She smiled. "Exactly." Above the station, new trust paths brightened, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to be noticed by those who watched such things. Humanity's presence in the galaxy shifted again, not through strength of arms or dominance of technology, but through a pattern now too clear to ignore. And at the center of it, an ordinary human continued his work, unaware that the quiet turning point had already passed, and that the future was slowly rearranging itself around a simple, shared belief in kindness. The change did not arrive with announcements or bright signals. It moved quietly, like a shift in gravity that could only be felt after a few careful steps. Elias noticed it first in the way requests came to him. They were no longer only repairs or technical checks. Some were invitations to listen, to explain, to sit with others who wanted to understand humans better. He still worked with his hands most days. He still crawled through narrow maintenance paths and calibrated old systems that newer minds had forgotten. But now, when he finished a task, someone often stayed nearby. An alien technician asked why humans preferred shared tools instead of private ones. A trader asked how humans decided who to trust. Elias answered as simply as he could. He did not speak for all humans. He spoke only from what he knew. Lyrana watched this from a distance at first. She had learned that presence changed behavior. If she stood too close, people performed. If she stepped back, truth appeared. She recorded patterns carefully. Humans did not become proud under attention. They became careful. One cycle, Selari grew tired, not suddenly, but in the slow way that age claimed its due. Elias noticed she rested more often, her movements slower, her voice softer. He offered help without being asked. Lyrana accepted it without ceremony. They organized the old records together. Elias handled fragile tablets with surprising patience. Selari guided him, telling stories tied to each artifact. Some were about loss, others about quiet victories that never reached history logs. "My people believed memory should be shared," Selari said one evening, "not guarded like treasure." "Humans argue about that," Elias said gently, "but we keep trying," she smiled. "Trying matters." That same cycle, Lyrana received a request she had not expected. Several species wished to open limited cultural exchanges with human communities. Not trade, not treaties, simple presence, shared learning spaces. Lyrana did not answer immediately. She walked the station instead, observing reactions. Humans were cautious. Curious but not demanding. Some declined politely, others accepted with conditions focused on safety and respect. When Lyrana finally responded, she approved only a few exchanges. Quality mattered more than scale. The council observed quietly. They noted the lack of urgency. The refusal to rush. Elias felt the weight growing even as he tried to avoid it. He worried about misunderstanding, about humans being placed on a pedestal they never asked for. One evening, he spoke openly. "This feels fragile," he said to Lyrana as they sat near the viewing port. Stars drifted slowly beyond the glass. "What if we disappoint them?" Lyrana folded her hands. "Disappointment is part of learning. What matters is response." "And if others push us to be something we are not?" Elias asked. "Then you will resist," she replied. "You already do." Selari listened quietly, then spoke. "The galaxy tests those it hopes to trust. Humans are being tested now, not by challenge, but by attention." Elias nodded slowly. "Attention can be dangerous." Yes, Salari said, that is why humility must walk with it. The first exchange began soon after. A small group of alien scholars arrived on a human agricultural world. No banners, no media. They observed quietly, working alongside farmers who welcomed them without ceremony. The scholars learned how humans solved problems with limited tools. They learned how communities argued, failed, and tried again. Reports returned. Honest, imperfect, encouraging. More requests followed. Lyrana limited them again. Meanwhile, Celari's health declined further. Elias stayed longer when he visited, sitting beside her as she rested. She spoke less now, but when she did, her words carried weight. "You helped me once," she said softly. "Do you know why I trusted you?" Elias shook his head. "You did not rush," she said. "Young species rush, old ones hurry. You paused." He felt something tighten in his chest. "I'm glad I did." "So am I," she said. That night, Celari slept longer than usual. Lyrana sat beside her, calm but alert. Elias waited nearby, unsure whether to stay or leave. Lyrana looked at him and nodded once. Stay. When Celari woke, she asked for them both. "My time grows thin," she said without fear. "I want to see what grows after." Lyrana held her hand. Elias sat close. "I have seen many ages," Celari continued. "Very few beginnings." She looked at Elias. "You did not save my people. You reminded us why saving matters." Tears filled his eyes, surprising him. He blinked them away, embarrassed. "Thank you," he said quietly. Celari rested then, breathing slow and even. She did not speak again that cycle. The station felt different after that. Quieter, more respectful. Word spread gently of Celari's passing when it came. No public announcement. Just understanding among those who mattered. Lyrana mourned privately. Elias did too, in his own human way. He repaired a broken light in the lower ring that had flickered for years. He planted a small living vine near Celari's door, one that required little care. The council acknowledged the loss with silence. That silence carried weight. In the cycles that followed, Lyrana stepped forward more openly. She did not claim authority, she accepted responsibility. She became a point of contact between humanity and the quiet watchers of the galaxy. Elias worried about her. "You carry a lot now," he said one evening. "I was trained for this," she replied. "But training is not the same as understanding. You help me understand." "How?" he asked. "By being human," she said. The exchanges expanded slowly. Humans learned as much as they taught. Mistakes happened, apologies followed, trust held. One incident tested everything. A misunderstanding over resource sharing created tension between two non-human groups on the station. Voices rose, old fears surfaced. Observers waited to see how humans would respond. Elias was nearby when it began. He did not speak loudly. He did not take sides. He listened, then asked a simple question that reframed the problem. Others joined. The tension eased. Lyrana recorded the moment not as evidence of leadership but of method. When the council reviewed it, they did not ask if humans could lead. They asked how they could learn. The realization spread quietly. Humanity did not seek control. That made them safe to stand beside. At the end of the cycle, Lyrana stood once more in the archive chamber. She added a final note to her ongoing record. Humans do not rush the future. They arrive in it. She closed the record and rested her hands at her sides. Elias returned to his work the next day. Systems still failed. Lights still flickered. People still needed help. But the galaxy now leaned slightly toward humanity. Not because humans demanded it, but because they made space for others to stand. And somewhere between memory and possibility, a quiet foundation had been laid. The station did not mark the passing of cycles the way planets did. There were no sunsets or dawns, only schedules and shifting lights. Still, Elias felt that something like a season had ended. The quiet wait that had followed Celari's passing slowly settled into something steadier. Not absence, but continuation. Lyrana moved through her days with calm focus. She spoke to councils, observers, and visitors, yet she never raised her voice or hurried her steps. Those who met her expected authority. What they found instead was clarity. She listened more than she spoke. When she answered, her words were simple and careful. Elias remained what he had always been. He fixed things. He helped when asked. He checked on people who looked tired. But now more beings noticed these actions, not with praise but with attention. One cycle, a delegation arrived without ceremony. No escorts, no symbols of status. Just a mixed group of species, each representing a different region of space. They requested a shared session, not with commanders or diplomats, but with ordinary humans. Lyrena suggested Elias. He resisted at first. There are better speakers, he said. They did not ask for speakers, Lyrena replied. They asked for humans. The meeting took place in an open hall usually used for repairs. Chairs were uneven. The lighting was plain. Elias sat among other humans, technicians and traders, farmers and pilots. No one stood at the front. The visitors asked questions. Why do humans argue so much yet stay together? The answers came from many voices, some unsure, some thoughtful, some honest about fear and doubt. Elias spoke when he felt he could add something, not more. We don't agree on much, he said at one point, but we agree that leaving someone behind feels wrong. The visitors listened. They did not interrupt. When the session ended, they did not applaud or declare anything. They thanked the humans and left. Days later, trust paths shifted again. Lyrena noticed patterns changing across the archive. Where once humanity was observed as unpredictable, now they were described as grounding. A presence that slowed reckless decisions, a reference point for balance. This made some uneasy. A few advanced species questioned the trend. They feared influence without control. They requested limits. The Council did not deny them. Instead, they invited those species to observe humans more closely. That was the quiet strength of the moment. Nothing was forced. Elias felt the tension indirectly. Some aliens tested him with sharp questions or dismissive tones. He answered the same way he always had, calm, direct, honest when he did not know. One day, a young alien engineer approached him near a maintenance shaft. "Why do you keep helping?" the engineer asked, "when you gain nothing?" Elias smiled faintly. "I gain a working station." The engineer looked confused. "And if it still breaks?" the alien pressed. "Then we fix it again," Elias said. The answer spread farther than either of them expected. Lyrena visited the garden near Celari's old home often. The vine Elias planted had taken hold, its leaves a soft green against metal walls. She tended it quietly, thinking of her mother's belief that memory should live, not freeze. One evening, Elias joined her there. "You look tired," he said. "So do you," she replied. They sat in companionable silence. "The Council is considering something," Lyrena said eventually. Elias waited. "They wish to formalize humanity's role," she continued. "Not as leaders, as anchors," he frowned. "What does that mean?" "That when disputes grow complex, when fear rises too fast, humans may be asked to be present," she said. "Not to decide, to remind." "Remind of what?" Elias asked. Lyrena looked at the vine. "Of being seen." Elias considered that. "We're not perfect." "That is why this works," she said. The decision did not become law, it became practice. In difficult negotiations, humans were invited to sit in. They asked simple questions, they summarized concerns, they slowed conversations that raced toward misunderstanding. Not all conflicts eased, but fewer grew worse. Humanity did not notice the shift at first. Only small changes, more invitations, more trust. Fewer assumptions of threat. On Earth and other human worlds, stories spread quietly, about aliens who listened, about shared meals, about learning without fear. Lyrena traveled more now, though never far from Elias' awareness. She visited human settlements and alien enclaves alike. Everywhere she watched for the same signs her mother once taught her to value: patience, care, willingness to stay. At the end of one long cycle, the Council requested a final review. Not of humanity's actions, but of outcomes. Lyrena stood before the archive once more, her voice was steady. "Humanity has not solved the galaxy's problems," she said. "They have made them survivable." She paused. "They do not bring answers, they bring space." The Council accepted the record without amendment. That was the moment the balance shifted fully. No celebration followed. No announcement. But from that point on, humanity was no longer considered emerging or uncertain. They were considered present. Elias felt it on a small scale. Fewer suspicious glances, more shared laughter, more quiet trust. One morning, he received a message from Lyrena, "Come to the garden." He found her there, standing beside the vine. It had begun to flower. "I will be leaving the station for a time," she said. He felt a twinge of loss. "How long?" "Cycles," she replied, "perhaps more." "Oh," he said. She turned to him. "This does not end anything." "I know," he said. "I just got used to you being here." She smiled. "That is a human habit I admire." They walked the station together one last time before her departure. No crowds followed. No farewells were announced, just steps side by side. At the docking ring, Lyrena stopped. "My mother believed in endings," she said softly. "You taught me to believe in continuations." Elias shook his head. "I think you taught me that." She inclined her head, deep and sincere. "Take care of the vine," she said. "I will," he promised. Her ship departed without spectacle. Elias watched until it vanished into the dark. Life continued. Years passed, not many but enough. The station changed. New sections were built, old ones restored instead of abandoned. Humans worked alongside others more often, trust paths strengthened. Elias aged slowly, lines forming at the edges of his eyes. He trained younger technicians. He told them stories of an old alien woman and her daughter not as legends but as people. Sometimes messages arrived from Lyrena. Observations, questions, memories. He replied when he could. One day, long after the station had stopped feeling like a temporary place, Elias stood again in the trade corridor where it had begun. A small alien struggled with a load too heavy for their frame. Others passed by. Elias stepped forward. "Can I help?" he asked. The alien looked up, surprised, then nodded. And somewhere far beyond the station, the archive recorded another quiet confirmation. Humanity had not risen above the galaxy. They had joined it. And in doing so, they reminded countless worlds of a truth easy to forget and hard to replace. That progress did not always arrive with power. Sometimes, it arrived with a pause, an open hand, and the simple choice to care.